Good morning, everyone. Spin Spun Hunts, and welcome back to the Monster Hunter Wilds Beta Part 2. We made it. The launch is in a few weeks, and I've been playing a bit since last night, and it's been wonderful again. I just can't say enough how happy I am to be back in the wilds, back in the plains. Now, this time with new monsters. We have Arkfeld, the flagship monster, and Gypsaros. Something I wanted to do, though, that I've been talking about is a small introductory video for kind of players getting into the series for the first time, or returning players that haven't played for a while, just to kind of teach some things that kind of help guide that process into the game, because it can feel a little overwhelming. I know when I started with Monster Hunter World, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mentioned it before. I got pretty lost, and I kind of wish that I would have had a little bit of guidance in that way. So I've been working with some friends, I've been talking with some other people, I've been helping, just them get into it themselves. And there's a few key components that really help whether the game will click with you or not. And, the first thing I'm going to talk about is actually the choice of weapons. So with Monster Hunter Wilds, just the series in general, there's 14 different weapons that you can choose from. In this one specifically, you can have 2 different weapon loadouts at the same time, whereas before you could only have one. As you can see here, I have my greatsword that I typically use, but with this iteration, I've actually been switching to Gunlance, which has become my favorite weapon for Wilds. I did play around with all 14 in the first beta in October. And I'll probably do it a little bit more here too, just for fun. I like playing around with them anyway. It's a good time regardless. So once you fire up the game and you get yourself into it, you'll get into this base camp, and if you go to the tent, you can change your weapons, your loadouts, and depending on which weapon you choose, will really dictate kind of the experience that you may or may not have. Sorry, my Elgato it cuts out every now and again. I'm not sure why it's been doing that. All right, so as you can see here, you have your tent loadout options. So you can change your equipment in the equipment menu, and you'll see by going to your primary and secondary weapons. I have my Gunlance and my greatsword equipped. But here you'll find all the different types of weapons. I strongly recommend for new players or players returning to really play around with them all, because every different weapon is like a game in its own. Every style is different, and really whichever one suits you the best will dictate the experience that you have. So there's some slower type weapons like greatsword. There's a little tutorial video, and it just kind of shows you the move sets and the experience with each individual one. Being a slower weapon with greatsword, a slower weapon with hammer. There's also hunting horde as a slower, Gunlance as a slower weapon, or you have like kind of faster paced weapons like dual blades or insect glaive, which allows you a lot more mobility when you're fighting, kind of that speed kind of rogue type behavior. So once you actually loaded out your weapons, you can go back to so this beta actually has a target training area that you can use. So if you go back to the end of the camp here, you'll find that it has the training area is just back here. So you go into the training area entrance, and here you'll see a practice dummy. This is a great place to practice with the weapons if you don't want to actually be getting hit by monsters and trying to deal with that piece. But if you're just trying them out for the first time, this is a great spot to get familiar with the weapons and see what suits you the best. So I'll just kind of show you how that looks. It'll show you the different combos that you can execute. This is the target you have. So if I'm trying to do like a cannon combo, it'll tell me, how to do that. And you try these different move sets out, and it'll let you kind of experiment with it, which is great. I'm gonna switch to my greatsword here. So, as you can see, it just allows me to try these different move sets. I'm pretty familiar with these ones. These are obviously my favorite weapons. But take the time to really familiarize yourself with the training dummy so that once you go on to take on the first monsters in the game, you'll be able to build on those skills that you just kind of learned with that weapon set. I'm not going to play too much in the camp, or sorry, with the training dummy, but you get the idea. So I really strongly recommend finding that weapon that suits you and going to that practice area and exploring that until you find the two weapons, ideally that suit you the best. Now, the second point that I have is that, we'll go back to the tent here for a minute just so I can show you. Before every hunt, you also have items. I'm not going to go too much into this because this is where it starts to get overwhelming. You know, Monster Hunter is very dependent on, you know, crafting materials. The whole loop is that you hunt the monster, you get the materials, you craft new weapons, you craft new armor, and you go around the map and you collect items that will allow you to make your hunts easier. So healing items, you know, you have like trap items and things like that. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now, but just to be aware that, you know, you have these item loadouts that'll allow you to set your healing potions or whatever. Now, the beta is already kind of good for that. They have these pre-loaded out, so you can just kind of go to it, and you know you can go to your L3 in my case, your managed loadouts. I made my own custom one anyway, but you know the recommended loadouts are basically already there for you that you can use at any time. But the point that I was going to get to is that you can eat a meal. So before every hunt, by eating a meal, you can boost the stats that'll give you, you know, different bonuses that will boost your health, boost your stamina, which makes a really, really big difference in your fights. Like having, you can see here, like stamina 150, health 50, you know, and plus attack. But that health and stamina is crucial when you're going into fighting these monsters, because without it, you will notice a very big difference. So first thing, get familiar with weapons. Number two, don't forget to eat before every meal. Before every hunt. Which I didn't do. You know, here's Alma. So, you know, you're starting your first quest, so you're familiar with your weapon. You feel like you're ready to go for your first couple hunts. You know, you can talk to her to post a quest. There's the optional quests. You can kind of pick which ones you want. Now, the first monster, the easiest one, kind of like a live test of the practice dummy, is the Chotacabra, because he's relatively easy. He's kind of slow. His movesets aren't too complicated, and you know it's a good time to practice. So one of the things I did when I played around with the 14 different weapon types is I kind of narrowed it down. Actually, I fought all of them, all 14. I fought the Chotacabra. And then from there, my favorite weapons, I went on to fight, you know, a Dashaguma. And then from there, my favorite, you know, 4 or 5 different types of weapons, I went and fought off the harder type, like Raidao, you know, the apex monster of the plains. So I'll just take up a quest with the Chotacabra, just to kind of show you what that's going to look like. And I think as you familiarize yourself too with the hunts now and you get farther into it, everything else will kind of gradually come in time. So the crafting, the materials, the loop, what you're going to need, the things you're going to pick up on, and then like the traps and items that make your hunts easier, that's going to come naturally. So you can see in this one, it's kind of self-guided. You know, Wilds, they kind of added this where you can lock on, you can open your map, and you know, you can kind of set your waypoints, and it'll auto-navigate using the mount that you have, which is awesome. It's a great way. So it's gonna take me over to the Chotacabra. Relatively easy monster, not too bad. You know, it doesn't hit too hard or anything like that. And there he is. So you know, as I get to hunting him now, I can practice those movesets that I learned before that are gonna allow me to start using the dodge mechanics and the rolls and things like that, so that I can actually practice all those movesets in real time and just getting prepared for the harder and more complicated types of fights, right? It's a fun little monster to fight. Honestly, I love him. So here's a focus. Here's one of the core mechanics of the game. You can see as I hit him, I have opened up this wound spot. Now it's glowing red, so it's kind of like the core mechanic. It's called a focus strike, which allows me to use that moveset that I just did to expose that wound, and then allows me to kind of knock the monster down and get a few hits on him. It just makes it a little bit easier and manageable. So you can see I just opened up another one there, and then right now I'm going to pop that wound. There's different ways that you can do it. Every weapon has a different moveset for doing so, and it kind of stuns the monster and allows you to kind of get that extra hit off on him. He got me that time. So there it is again. And then, by exposing those wounds, you can see he's kind of stunned now, which will allow me to continuously just beat him up. And knock him down. I'll switch my weapon now just so you can see kind of how it looks with a different weapon set. So now I'll pull out my gun lance and go back to using the movesets on this now. Now, like I said, I really fell in love with gun lance in this one. It's great for parrying, blocking, survivability is awesome, and it's just a really fun weapon for me. Some players are more, you like ranged weapons more, or things like that. There's lots of options. There's bow guns. The bow is a great weapon. There's lots of options in this game to really suit any type of different player. I don't think he's going to have too much left in him. I've been giving him a go here. But as you can see, he's not a very complicated monster. It's a great little intro to getting familiar with the game itself. And you'll find like the difficulty definitely does scale up, and you will have a hard time with some monsters. Like Raydao, he hits really hard, and now Arkfeld, like they're not easy. And then as you get into the main game, and added in content, it becomes quite challenging. It's just a wonderful experience. So if you like that kind of a challenging game and this type of combat, then I definitely think it's for you. But play around with the different weapons and get familiar with it all, because that's what's going to make it between being able to stick with it or just getting frustrated and end up putting it down. So yeah, I've exposed another one with this one now. So the gun lance kind of has like this miniature little Dragonator where you kind of just get to do that, and then obviously the Wyvern Strike, which is a super fun attack where you get to blast the monster with a really big boom. As you injure the monster, you'll see they tend to run off, and then you have to go chase them down. As they become wounded, you can see at the very bottom of the screen here that there's like a little life bar that kind of shows you where the monster is at. So it's starting to go down. You can see he's moving a lot slower and he's kind of limping away. And what they'll do is they'll go to sleep once they're fairly wounded, which will allow you to trap them. But again, you don't really have to worry about that too much at the beginning. I'll just show you some of the other items here because it's kind of fun to play around with. I'm just going to drop a barrel because this is one of the reasons why I love Gunlance so much, is that you can just use this Wyvern Strike cannon and just blow up those barrels when you're sleeping. Kind of waking them up with a big boom. And just like that. So I've slayed the monster now, and as you can see, the quest is now complete. So what you'll do is you'll go to the carcass of the monster, salvage the materials that you'll now use to craft new weapons, new armor sets, and with that will come new skills that will boost the weapons that you end up using. Let's see if I can pull up my skill sets here. So you can see over on the side of the screen here, I kind of chose armor sets that will give me boosts to my gun lance. So the equipment skills, which is located in the middle of the screen, Bombardier is going to boost my blast attack damage. You know, it could be for something like a dual blades or a long sword. You know, you might want something that kind of gives you like weak spot damage or things like that, attack plus. Like there's so many different skills in the game that will kind of boost those core mechanics that you end up using. And don't get too hung up on all of these little details at the time, because it'll all come naturally throughout the process as you play around and as you experiment. But I think, again, like just to summarize this small little kind of intro, is that focus on trying out different weapons to find what suits you the best. Play around with the target dummy if you're new to this kind of thing. Start with the lower ranked, lower challenging monsters to build that experience level. You know, there's co-op play too. That's a great way if you're struggling. And then obviously eat before you go on your hunts. Manage your equipment and your items, and then take the rest in strides. It's a great game. You know, the full game's out in 3 weeks, and the beta's this weekend, and next weekend. It's a great time to practice, to play around, and just to see if the game's going to jive with you before you end up playing the full launch. I hope this was helpful. I'll probably be doing a few more of these videos that will get into different kind of difficulties over the next coming weeks and months. But hope you enjoyed it, and happy hunting.